Hello, bonjour, and welcome to WT France, your weekly podcast in which we talk about WTF happened in French politics in the last 7 days. I'm your co-host Juliette.
And I am Pepijn. I have been a little bit bored this week because over the last 10, 12 days, we had Leon Marchand, our favorite swimming guy, swimming. And he just stopped swimming last week all of a sudden.
That's rude.
Even though the Olympics are still on. So I hope there is some good stuff in the French actual politics. Maybe you can talk about the various prime ministers that by now have been chosen.
Yeah, you'd think we'd have like 12 prime ministers by now with all the time Macron has had to choose one, but still not. Though, I think there is hope on the horizon. Because I read yesterday that Macron has finally found a prime minister that he likes.
Oh, he found one. So that is big news. So there is actually a prime minister now.
No. I haven't said there's a prime minister.
Because I hadn't heard anything of this.
I said he found a prime minister he likes. The problem is that it's not the prime minister of France. It's Keir Starmer.
So he figured out that the person the other people liked was a woman.
Yeah.
And now what he found was basically a middle-aged white male who likes to wear suits.
It's groundbreaking.
And is a little bit socialist on one side, but also okay with having dinner with a rich banker.
Are we sure that Keir Starmer is a socialist?
Yeah, I think he identifies strongly as a socialist. And he does socialist words a lot. I am not that knowledgeable about UK politics, but I'm pretty sure he identifies as a middle-of-the-road, conservative socialist.
Yeah, so he's a centrist.
But he likes trees, trains, solutions, climate change stuff, but mostly far in the future.
Yeah, if he doesn't have to do too much about it. But yeah,
centrist,
I think that's what Macron likes about him. They have very similar profiles, actually. I think both got to power representing the left and then are slowly making their ways to the right, or to the center at least. They have very similar international relation views, like, let's not talk about Brexit, let's just pretend we've just been casual neighbors all along. And I think for Macron, it's a nice change from the Tories, who just weren't interested in anything outside of the UK. And it gives him like a nice little international profile. And he always likes that. He likes to look good on the international scene.
Macron on an international stage wants to be seen as one of those statesman type person. And to be honest, kind of has that vibe over him. And within France, he really doesn't. And Starmer might be a little bit the same, but let's focus on the French.
So Macron continues to be liked abroad in a way that he just isn't in France. And the way that there still is not a prime minister, I can't emphasize enough how completely abnormal this is in France. It usually takes like a few days, a week maximum. So we're coming on to a month. It has been a month since the second round of the elections. This is very abnormal.
What I feel is normally what happens is that it is easier because you just name a buddy of yours.
It might be, or if the National Assembly, for instance, is dominated by another party, you would choose the leader of that party.
Yeah.
And we've had that. We've had what we called cohabitation, which is having a government and a National Assembly that are of a different political party than the president. And this is really what should be happening here. But Macron is digging in his heels and he's getting really criticized for it. There is increased criticism of that refusal to name a prime minister.
Okay.
So, for example, there was an interesting opinion piece in Le Monde this week, signed by a man who is actually not super famous at all, but he's one of these people that is massively influential, even though no one has heard about him. His name is Robert Zarada.
Say again? Robert
Zarada.
Okay. Have not heard of him.
So what he is credited with is like to be the one who came up with Macron's very first campaign slogan, En Marche.
En Marche.
En Marche.
Is that a big thing? Is that a big deal? It sounds like a supermarket slogan.
A little bit. Essentially, it means let's go, but it also has that
That's
echo.
more like Halford's. car maintenance.
It has that echo of like the national anthem, that the a phrase in it, marchons, marchons,
Oh yeah.
which has like very popular undertones. And Zahada is a very, very skilled political communication consultant. He was advising François Hollande for a very long time. And when Hollande decided to not run for president again, he moved to Macron. And so he was a close advisor of Macron. So the fact that he's writing an opinion piece in Le Monde pointing out so many issues is actually quite a big deal.
So what is he saying? What are these issues he's pointing out?
So he's pointing out a lot of the weaknesses of Macron. The first one being, just in general, Macron has lost the gravitas of the presidency. It's really a role in France that is supposed to stand above the fray, but Macron keeps getting involved in everything. What's interesting, though, is that he's pretending he's not. So Macron, I think, in the same way that he is on the international stage, he wants to have that like statesman view where you're not constantly in the details. But at the same time, he is like writing open letters, giving interviews, giving TV speeches in a way that's very reminiscent of Sarkozy. Like Sarkozy was what we call a hyper president, like constantly there, like constantly doing micromanaging everything.
Very tiring as well for everyone, for the country.
Exactly. And so he can't figure out which one it is, but what's sure is that he's not doing the single most important thing he should be doing right now, which is getting a prime minister.
And he's still visiting a lot of Olympic stuff.
Also, he's having a lot of fun with that.
Hey, Pepijn here. During the editing, I noticed that our dog is very loud in the background. Just to let you know, we have a very happy dog. There was nothing wrong there. And from now on, it should be a bit better. Let's continue with the podcast. Do you have a sense that he is working on the prime minister?
So there are rumors going around that some people on the right are trying to have someone from Les Républicains named. That person is Xavier Bertrand.
Wait. Xavier Bertrand.
Yes.
That's a name I know.
Okay. Do you want to talk about what you know about him now? Or
let's wait a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you mention it.
Maybe not. So he is the president of the regional council of the Hauts-de-France region. That's the large region in the north of France that includes Lille, Calais, Dunkirk, etc. And so, yeah.
The Dunkirk. Normal people in the Netherlands call it Duinkerken.
Okay.
Let's continue.
Yeah, so his name is being floated around by his friends, most likely, and he's actually said, yeah, I would do the job. And I'm starting to think like maybe that is something that Macron is considering.
But they got slaughtered in the election, the Républicains.
Yeah, they really did.
So he would not represent the big bloc on the left.
No.
He would not represent most people in the middle.
So I think what they're trying to do is create kind of a ad hoc alliance with the centrists and to say basically to Macron, we'll support your agenda if you give us the really cool job.
Ah, okay. That's quite a bold move, as he's not talking to the left. Like Macron is not talking to the left. That's interesting.
Yeah, and so the thing is, in theory, if you combine the numbers of Les Républicains in the center, they have a bigger group than the Nouveau Front Populaire. What the Nouveau Front Populaire has, though, is an actual common program. So this would be an alliance that's done purely to get numbers to try to avoid a vote of no confidence, but it would not actually be for any kind of common program that they have presented.
It sounds like a placeholder government just to get to the next thing, but could it work?
I think it would be a very hard pill to swallow for two different groups that would have to come on board. First is the center-left part of Macron's party. Again, like I think we forget often because he's been doing such right-wing politics, But Macron has a centrist party in which a lot of kind of center-left people got on board a few years ago. And these, I think for them, that would be really a last straw to have to support a right-wing prime minister. And so they might actually ditch that group. So that's the first group where I'm like, there's a weakness here. So the second group that might not stand for it there's several members of Les Républicains who have been trying so hard to differentiate themselves from Macron and to kind of stand out from his politics because they want to have a chance at the next presidential election. And that's going to be a very hard sell for them as well, because when you join forces like this, you end up diluting your message. And it's also going to be very clear to a lot of voters, like, this is sort of all the same group, like they're way too close to each other. And then, honestly, he still has not called Lucie Castet. And he really should be doing that.
It's so bad still.
It's like, at the bare minimum, acknowledge her existence. Like, this is the biggest political force in the country right now, and you're not even calling them.
It's like a post she does on Twitter or X. Maybe call. Maybe call. So, as I said earlier, Xavier Bertrand.
Yeah.
I remember him for two things. And I think the reason I remember him, because in the Dutch media, and I think in a lot of European countries, this was a big thing at the time. In 2014, Russia first invaded Ukraine. At that moment, France was building the Mistral class helicopter aircraft carrier for Russia.
Yes,
I think France has 3 or 4 themselves, and they were building another one for Russia. Russia paid a lot of money for that. I think the idea was they would build 1 or 2, and then Russia would build a couple more themselves. NATO countries are not super happy about that. I think European countries very quickly said, don't sell that thing. And then President Hollande, I guess, said, we're going to do it anyway, because they paid like, I don't know, 1-2 billion euro for it.
Yeah.
And this guy was in the Dutch media defending that decision. The other thing that I remember him for, because it was in the same time, because they did a background article on him, he was very much against same-sex couples, against adoption by same-sex couples, but he was also against IVF treatments. And I just remember thinking that is not what I think of as I think of French politics.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is his position on gay marriage. And so he wasn't opposing IVF, he was opposing IVF for gay couples specifically.
Okay.
But that position is one that a lot of French politicians had, and they are still all doing great. So that has not hurt him in the slightest. And I don't think that would be something that blocks him now.
Okay.
Though interestingly, Lucie Castet this week made her kind of public coming out, like I assume her family already knew, because in an interview she mentioned her wife and their daughter or their son. Xavier Bertrand would have definitely not supported Lucie Castet getting her family.
That is quite a culture clash there, I guess.
Yeah. And then the Ukraine bit, though, I think that might hurt him. So that's interesting that you bring this up, because it has not come up at all in France. But one thing that Mélenchon from the La France Insoumise party, one of the things that people keep talking about against him is that he was a little bit wishy-washy on the Ukraine war and kind of supporting Ukraine against Russian invasion. So if those people have any kind of like strict like position, this should massively hurt Xavier Bertrand as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if it comes out at all.
As an outsider, what I could see happen is that the moment someone brings this up, there will be a comment like, yeah, well, you have to see it in the setting of the time. 2014, a lot of money, and it was a lot of foreign countries telling France what to do. So collectively, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
I could see that happen.
A man of his time, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like some things should stick to people's profiles a bit longer than they do. I also think the gay marriage thing definitely should be still a thing, but yeah.
So, going back to our first question. How long can Macron continue to work with the caretaker government, etc., prime minister, all these people in double roles?
So the clock runs out on August 16th for the government. So you'll remember, because I bring this up every week, there are 17 members of the government that have been elected in the National Assembly. The law that governs like how you have to behave as a minister who's elected or as a deputy who's been named minister says you have 1 month from the moment you resign or from the moment there is a conflict. Normally, actually, that would be now. It's been a month since they became deputies.
But of course, in the constitution, it says something when there is the Paris 24 Olympics, you get 2 weeks extra.
Yeah, that's very clear. They
Part of the Fifth Republic.
It's great that they thought about this in like 1950s.
It was probably Rousseau who did this.
Yeah. But yeah, so
not great with history, see that.
On August 16th, the clock runs out because the government's resignation was accepted on July 16th. Okay. And so we have a 1 month clock running out. So that's in just a few days.
Okay.
The next big thing is the budget law for next year, because usually the budget law is like worked on through the summer, then it goes through like several rounds of being checked up by different financial institutions before it comes to the parliament to be voted on, and you get like this way you get enough wiggle room that by December 31st you've got a budget for the upcoming year.
And it has been, when the budget is there, the way I understand now, it's already been vetted basically by not just 1 or 2 persons, but it's a broad consensus.
Yeah,
it's not like a school project done on Sunday afternoon.
No, you really want to, so you get like kind of input from different ministries, you get input from like lots of organizations that are getting their money from taxes.
So when the final vote is there, it's basically a we're going to pass it anyway type of vote almost.
And so for me, this cannot possibly fall under a caretaker government, because how we spend money is like the most political thing.
That's what people vote for.
Yeah. But they're actually starting to argue like having a budget, that's just caretaking.
Okay.
For me, that absolutely does not fly. The government has been called out by the EU for the budget deficit, along with a few other countries. That happened a couple of weeks ago. And so one of the biggest questions is how do you get these finances back in order? And the current government saying, we'll just have to find savings. But that's
an easy way.
That's not the only way you can make up that hole. You can raise taxes. Like you can either, spend less money or get more money in. That's how you balance a budget.
Or get taxes from a different shifting groups or
exactly. Yeah. So that is an extremely political choice, and this is not caretaking. This is like deciding how the country works.
What you could do is maybe increase the pension age, for example, for all people that work in railroads and healthcare.
Yeah, good luck with that one. One of the things is the budget has to come from the government, obviously. Like this is in the constitution. So you need a government to do the budget.
Oh, this is actually
it's in the constitution. The government is responsible for the budget law.
Oh, that's cool.
It cannot be done by a group of deputies themselves.
Okay.
So we no more government in just like a week, but you need one for pretty much the single most important law done every year.
Now, this has all been government stuff and money stuff. And in the end, what people really want to know when they listen to this podcast, what about the extreme right? Have they been doing something stupid? Is there currently a Marine Le Pen locked in a building claiming she has the only key?
So they've been real quiet. Well, so they tried to create like this fake culture war thing after the opening ceremony of the Olympics. You'll remember that very well.
Yeah.
With like fake offense on behalf of Christians everywhere, except that sort of backfired on them, because while the ceremony has been, there's been lovers and haters abroad, in France, it's been lovers only.
It became a unifying thing. I have a vibe.
It really did. It really did. So when you're like the one people like throwing crap at it and everyone else is like, no, this was great, I loved it, that doesn't quite work. So they've actually turned things around a little bit now that they realize everyone loves the Olympics. And they're saying like, well, see how well they're going? It's because there's really, really high security in Paris, and that's a right-wing measure.
Wow.
So basically, like, yes, there's heightened security in Paris, absolutely no question.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone sort of expects
So
that for such a high profile event.
the argument is basically we have our freedom back, and everyone likes that a lot. It's because we started a small police state within the state.
Yeah.
Did anyone point out that maybe could also be because there's less cars in the center of Paris?
That's my opinion. I don't think anyone's really pointing that out yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know, the Olympics, a Taylor Swift concert, you have heightened security. That's apparently, according to them, all according thanks to the extreme right.
So any other big news? Because I must say, the extreme right is disappointing me here a little bit, and I don't say that often. I just from the extreme right, you expect more infighting and more drama. That's what the extreme right is known for.
Okay, I'll look.
So, any other big news?
I'll look for extreme right infighting in the future.
I think everyone enjoys that.
Okay. Any other big news? Something that's popping up, not so fun crisis that's going to come, and to be something to sort out for whichever new government is in place, is that the wheat harvest and the grape harvests are really bad this year. For the wheat in particular, it could be the worst in 40 years in France. So that's probably going to mean rising food prices, and that's going to create a lot of conflict. That was due to a very rainy spring.
Yeah.
It was harder to sow. This is obviously linked to climate change, except no one's mentioning that it's obviously linked to climate change.
Oh, that's maybe a bit different than from a lot of other European countries, because this has been a European thing, the extremely wet, rainy spring. But I think in most countries I've seen comments about it being climate change.
Yeah, it's not massively flagged, actually.
For the grapes, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, positive thing for the grapes, the workers can now work 2 weeks in a row without a day off. So everyone's going to be happy about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have way fewer grapes to harvest in the first place, like,
you can still have a break.
Necessary? Yeah.
Okay, is that all for this week?
I think politics, I know, like, I talked a lot about politics in this podcast, but overall, actually, really isn't a lot going on because of the Olympics, and it's gonna get even quieter because August tends to be a holiday month in France, and most politicians go on holiday, relax at the beach. I guess Macron is just gonna go back to where he was
fly
sailing
around the country a little bit.
Yeah, but let's end on something nice because we just spoke of harvests. Olympic medal harvest. This was the biggest ever for France. Well, actually, no, it was the second biggest ever. The biggest ever was like in 1900, but they had a bunch of weird sports that no one do anymore, so no one really counts.
Yeah, the person who smoked the hardest.
I think there used to be like a sport that was like long jump, but without kind of running before. So you like stand in one place, and then from that static place, you had to jump as far as you could.
I think our cats are really good at that. Cats do that.
Definitely. Anyway,
they should bring that back, but only like with actual cats. So every country gets a cat.
That would be cool. All right, but that's it. Lots of medals for France, way more than ever. So we're very happy with that.
Okay, let's end it then. We got some really nice feedback from listeners over the last week. We got feedback all the way from faraway countries like Canada, but also from Finland. We got some feedback from the Netherlands, some feedback from Germany and Denmark. So quite amazing. Some of the feedback mentioned the audio quality, and we are happy to report that we have invested in actual equipment. So next week will be better, maybe.
So this is where usually we would pitch a Patreon, but I think we'll skip that.
Yeah, we have a couple of dozen listeners at the moment, and mostly it was 500 Danish kroner. So I think you know what? Give us money. Money.
All right. À la semaine prochaine.
Bye.